Pokemon Shield is Generation 8 of the giant video game franchise Pokemon, but it's only the 4th generation that I've played myself, and it's the first Pokemon game I've ever reviewed. And I have to say, it's a difficult game to review. The story is followable, but isn't winning any awards. The characters are rarely particularly compelling. The graphics are rarely better than passable. The gameplay, though the core game mechanics are out of this world, or the games wouldn't be so popular, they are executed in a way that I've always felt feels cheap and clunky in preference to a smooth and visually pleasing experience. There's a lot of small examples of this, but one that comes immediately to mind is mounting and dismounting your bicycle. In the game, you press the button, you get a split second of lag, then the bike is immediately underneath you. It's little things like this that makes for what feels like an unpolished experience, in my opinion. What would have been better would have been a short animation where the character pulls the bike out from behind them and hops on. Hell, even a fade in and out would have been better than the jump cut provided. There's more too, because I've always felt Pokemon relies far too heavily on RNG for its game mechanics to work. It's not a problem while the RNG gods are smiling at you, but spates of bad luck on RNG get very frustrating very quickly, and it's hard not to turn around and see the bad RNG as poor game design, even when that isn't the case. Though I understand some RNG is pretty much always required for a smooth and fair experience, overall I steer away from RNG heavy games, and the occasional frustration I feel when playing Pokemon games is exactly why. So I'm sitting here writing this review and I'm thinking, damn, why do I even like the Pokemon games? And honestly, that's a much harder question to answer than I was expecting. The thing is, no matter which way I look at it, all the Pokemon games I've played score pretty low on pretty much every metric I use to rate a game on. So why do I and so many other people out there love the Pokemon games? Well, because they're fun, and ultimately, that's all a game needs to be. A player can easily forgive a game's shortcomings if the overall experience is enjoyable enough. And while Pokemon games are unlikely to win any awards for their worlds, stories, characters, UI, or gameplay, people will continue to come back for more while the core gameplay loop continues to be so incredibly compelling, and the characters, including the Pokemon themselves, continue to be so genuinely adorable and fun to share the experience with. Honestly, the core concept of Pokemon has always been pure solid gold, and I believe this is why people continue to go back to the franchise for more, when ultimately each game is a vastly similar experience. So with that slight existential crisis off my chest, how was Shield? Well, I feel like even within the Pokemon franchise, Pokemon Shield is going to struggle to win any awards. The story is weak, even for a Pokemon game. The characters are as two-dimensional as they come, with the slight exception of Bede, who is the only real antagonist of a game where he plays actually only a very small plot role, and the slightly more unique way that Sun and Moon handled gyms has entirely gone back to the old paradigm of town hopping to each gym. As a matter of fact, I slightly prefer this paradigm, but a more interesting way of implementing it would have been nice. Because the story of Shield revolves almost entirely around completing this gym challenge, the mandatory other story that follows discovering about the Darkest Day feels entirely like a subplot throughout the game, even though it really should be the main plot. There are no real antagonists throughout the game, and any slight rivalries are mostly entirely resolved by the end with them cheering you on. The final boss you only find out is even a bad guy roughly 10 minutes before you fight them. You fight them once, and that's it. The rival in Hop just seems to hop in and out of the narrative as a plot convenience, pun intended, and all the above does when you mush it together is make the parts in between the gyms feel like little more than filler. Compare this to Pokemon Sun, that at least had an interesting way of handling the gym challenge, and had a compelling story outside it with proper villains that were genuinely satisfying to finally beat. Even the game's gimmick, the Poke-Pelego, where you had a little island for your Pokemon when you weren't fighting, was fun. The gimmick of Shield is Dynamaxing Pokemon, a feature that can only be used either in a boss battle or at very specific moments of the game that just makes your Pokemon big. Yes, that's it. It just makes them bigger and increases their stats for 3 turns. Yay. So while I enjoyed Shield and I'm glad I purchased it, I'm not going to recommend it, even to fans of the franchise. There are simply too many other, better games out there to spend your time and money on. It's not a bad game, but it's also not particularly good, and feels overall like a lazy entry to the Pokemon franchise.